And welcome in, everybody, to Off of the Helmets. I'm Brady Tinker. It is time to talk Dallas Cowboys football on this lazy gray February afternoon because you know what? It's almost time to talk about what free agents are going to return for the Cowboys, what free agents may come to the Cowboys. Is there a trade to be had for a wide receiver? Here's where we are. 21 free agents for the Dallas Cowboys may leave. Several may return, and certainly a few may be signed away from other teams. Rosters in the NFL do this. They churn roughly 25 to 30% average on the year. So when Stephen Jones said this year, we may have 30% turnover, they had about a 27% turnover last year. It happens. So what you look at is how are we with the real key positions on the team? Quarterback, Dak will return. Micah Parsons, one of the 5 or 7 best players in the NFL, certainly will return. Tank had a great year, defensive end. Dorrance Armstrong had a very good year defensive end. Micah lines up sometimes at defensive end and plays that position. All 3 of those are premium positions, as is quarterback. C.D. Lamb will certainly return. Zach Martin is the best right guard in football. Tyler Smith, rookie from last year, ended up being a guy that I think we all think has a chance to be a Pro Bowl left tackle, premium position. Diggs, shutdown corner, wasn't as good this year as last, but he's still very good, premium position. And then Curse and Hooker all return. That's a core. That's a core along with the returning head coach and the returning defensive coordinator and a returning attitude of winning of 24 wins in the last 2 years. That's a core. And maybe Pollard is still on this team. We'll get to that. Maybe Zeke. Maybe Dalton Schultz, but probably not. Maybe Tyron Smith if the deal is right and if he seems to be healthy, but most likely not as a starter. Plus Pro Bowler Donovan Wilson has a good chance to return as well. That's a really good core, and that's why this is a good team. Let's figure it out. Then decide what positions need to be fixed and what you do in the draft, because I have specific ideas, not just about players, but about how this draft needs to go. Let's do it all right now on Off of the Helmets. You know, I mentioned what I consider to be the core players that are returning, and it's a lot of really good players. And the key positions, premium positions in the NFL, believe me, are these. Quarterback, because you can't beat the Chiefs apparently this year because Mahomes was perfect. Defense was Offensive line got better. Running game was Wide receivers were So you got an all-world tight end, an all-world quarterback, an all-world coach, and they were the world champions. But not everyone's going to get Pat Mahomes. As a matter of fact, hardly any teams in the NFL are going to have anything like that, maybe 4 or 5. The rest of you are going to have to deal with pretty good quarterbacks, guys who are good leaders, guys who have good arms, who are athletic, who have certain picky-uns that you and I don't necessarily like. Last year with Dak, uncharacteristically, it was a big turnover year. Not great, but you know he'll fix it. And by the way, he's not going anywhere. So it's either a restructure of the current deal, which I don't think it is, or they get more leeway with not a restructure, but an extension. We will get to that. But I mentioned what I consider to be the core of this team. Core position players are quarterback, cornerback, not necessarily in this order, quarterback, cornerback, at least one shutdown, defensive ends, and offensive tackles. And essentially that's it. Now, great playmakers like Micah Parsons, you can say whatever position he plays best defensive player on the field. Certainly that's a premium player, but he's one of 2 handfuls in the NFL that have that kind of ability to line up wherever on defense and probably be the best player on the field every week. That's unusual. It's nice to have them. But those are your premium positions. And the reason I keep bringing that up is, in my opinion, in this draft with a good team already and with the ability that we have seen coaches in the NFL move players along and get them into the starting lineup, and we will get to last year's draft of the Cowboys, which was excellent, the more I think premium position players are all I want in the draft, and only place I want them to be drafted from, if possible, is the SEC. Easy, isn't it? Now, I mentioned running back, but that is not a key position, and that will spur a discussion with us. By definition, running back is not a key position in the NFL. Most teams are going with 2 at least. Many teams are more often going with 3. The Eagles, the Chiefs, not a great running team, but certainly they ran enough in the Super Bowl to win, and the Ravens all used consistently 3. I can find you more, but those are good teams. Tony Pollard is a discussion to be had. By the way, the Cowboys last year running the football averaged 135.2 yards. Now, you remember Zeke started off pretty good early in the year. Yards per carry hovered just over 4. It was good. He scored a lot of touchdowns this year. Overall, Zeke in his 7th year actually was good. It's just, you got to remember, it's his 7th year, and we'll get to how many carries he has on that body, including 3 at Ohio State in a minute. It's no wonder that he slowed down in the second half. Tony Pollard came on, and it was his 4th year. Going into his 5th year, you would say normally we're not extending or giving a new contract to Tony Pollard, who is also a free agent. We're letting him go because you don't pay 5th-year running backs, except that this one only has 510 carries total. Zeke has 3,500 touches since he's been in the NFL and the 3 years at Ohio State. That's a rough number, and it's probably a little under, to be honest with you. So here's what's going to happen with Zeke, I imagine. Zeke's people have already come out and said he'll take a pay cut. He'd like to finish his career in Dallas. They would like that. The Cowboys would like that. Most of the fans would like that. The team would like that. Zeke in his first few years was a phenomenal player and seemed to be a wild card that might be a problem, and maybe this wasn't going to be a great career. It was really a great career as a Dallas Cowboy, no doubt about it. Everyone gets old, especially at the running back position, when you have 3,500 touches in essentially an 8-year period. You're going to get beat to hell, no matter how strong you are. When you slow down, you're easier to hit. He's big, he's strong, he uses that ass and those legs, he lifts a lot of weights, and he runs into a lot of people. Evidenced by the fact that he had 12 touchdowns this year. He was just nifty enough and plenty strong enough to be expert at getting in the end zone this year. 12 touchdowns isn't nothing. It's a ton. Pollard also had 12 touchdowns. You got 24 touchdowns rushing. You take that again next year and sign up for it in a heartbeat, especially since next year they're planning on running the football more. But Zeke's been to 3 Pro Bowls. He's had 4 1,000-yard seasons in 7 seasons total. Granted, one of them was 1,002. One of them was 1,031. 4 1,000-yard seasons, 3 Pro Bowls, nearly 2,000 carries in the NFL, 300 catches, and roughly 1,000 carries at Ohio State. That's 3,500-ish touches. That's a ton. And therefore, he's done. Now, that's my dog. Now, what do you do? Because the Cowboys would like to have him. You know this. You know, you've seen it too often, and it's not his undoing, but Jerry Jones likes his people, right? There's just no doubt about it. He's always signed his people. He's always given them extra years. But the truth is, we've already done that. Zeke held out after year 3, got another 4-year contract that was massive money. He pulled one over on Stephen Jones. It's been a contract that's been an albatross for this team for certainly the last 3 years. And it is time for Zeke to be a post-June 1st cut. Could he return on a cheaper deal? If he wants to, sure. But what we're talking about most likely, honestly, is about $1.5 million a year. Do you think Zeke's going to go from what was salary-wise this year, $10.5 million, not to mention with bonuses, he's going to count $17 million against the cap? It's a massive, undoable number for the Dallas Cowboys, who are currently, as I sit here today, roughly estimated to be at $7 million over the cap. Okay, now you take care of that with a Dak extension, and you take care of that, you save $13 million by a post-June 1st cut with Zeke. If he's coming back at $1.5 million, he's probably great to have in the locker room. You add a second running back, and Zeke is probably running back 2A or 2B, but I doubt it. So now to Tony Pollard. Only 510 NFL touches, only 240 roughly at Memphis. That's 800 touches in his young career, including his 3 years at Memphis. So that is 22% as we sit here now, 22% of the total touches that Zeke Elliott had, 22%. So he's got 78% to go in theory, except that Zeke was probably done 1.5 years ago. The conversation begins with, are you going to franchise tag Tony Pollard? The benefit of that is you only, if you want to, have to have him for 1 year. If you're eyeballing him, you're looking at the injury that he finished the season with. You're looking at his age. You're looking at the fact that he's going into his 5th season as an NFL running back. And you say, you know what? We're going to franchise him because we trust that the injury, and everything that I've been told was it wasn't screws and nuts and bolts into that ankle and into that foot. It wasn't. It was not as serious and a surgery as that. So the Cowboys feel pretty good about his return. Still gives me a little bit of a pause because the franchise tag on Tony Pollard would be roughly $10 million this year. Only, I believe, 3 running backs in the NFL last year made more money than that. 3. And some of this, I initially say that and I think, I don't care. But then it's the problem with the statistics era. It drives me crazy in every single sport, and I'm not sure it's made any sport any better, to be honest with you, but then I'm old. But statistically, paying running backs in the last 5, 6, 7, 10 years just flatly hasn't worked. The running back who won the Super Bowl, who was on the Super Bowl winning team the last 15 years, has not been paid more than $2 million. Not a single running back on a team has been paid more than $2 million that won a Super Bowl. Those things are not necessarily intricately tied, but it's not nothing. Statistics. Franchise tag would be $10 million for Tony Pollard. You might be able to get back, if we jump ahead here for a second, $30 million, giving Dak a contract extension for another 5-ish years. Now, don't lose your mind. They won't have to keep him for that entire time, although they might. But that is a way to ensure that your leader is here, a guy that everyone in the locker room truly loves, and all that stuff does matter. The fact that they play so hard on defense for Dan Quinn and that he sends people to the Pro Bowl matters. The fact that these players do respect and like how Mike McCarthy goes about his business. He is a player's coach. He falls on every sword in front of us for them. That, among other things, is a player's coach. He gives them opportunities. He puts them in positions to win. Have you ever heard him badmouth a player on this football team? He just doesn't do it, and the players love it. So in theory, $10 million franchise tag for Pollard is a 1-year deal. It's more than you want to spend. And the alternative is, well, we're going to just re-sign him. We'll re-sign him and we'll give him a new 4-year contract. Can't even really figure it out. But I would say, let's just say it's 4 years and $24 million. And your immediate math says $6 million a year. Probably not quite that much. $15 million guaranteed. They'd be able, I'm making this up, $15 million guaranteed, let's say, and they'd be able to get out after 2 years. If you do that, $15 million guaranteed, and you leave after 2 years, then you paid him $7.5 million a year for 2 years, and we'll figure out what the cap hit, et cetera, and all that is at the end to get out from underneath that number. But probably they can help themselves salary cap wise by giving Tony Pollard a 4-year new contract. Problem is, he's starting his 5th, then it will be a 6th, then it'll be a 7th, then it will be his 8th year in the NFL. What do 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th year running backs do? For the most part, get hurt and fail. Caveat is, Tony Pollard has total, including college, 800 touches. Zeke has 3,500. That's a big difference. I heard an NFL scout say this the other day, and I have repeated it as if it was my own, and I apologize for that, but I can't remember his name. But he said he thought franchising Pollard was a no-brainer, even at $10 million a year, and even though it's not a premium position for multiple reasons. One, the Cowboys were 9th in the NFL in rushing and did very well getting into the end zone from the red zone, running the football. Pollard had 12 touchdowns. It was certainly his single breakout season. He only caught, I think, 32 passes. That should easily go to 42 to 50, and you'll get more out of him. And if you can get another 1,250 yards and 600 yards receiving out of Pollard, something approaching 2,000 yards, then $10 million will seem just fine to you. Let's assume given health. Okay, that's the big ticket. But it's $10 million, but it's only 1 year. And then if you want to be done, you can be done, and or you can franchise him again. And it'll go up, I don't know, to 12 or 13 the next year. You probably wouldn't, but you could. And you can play this thing step by step, year by year. It's probably what you should do with every single running back in the NFL, but not when you're paying 10, 12, or $13 million. Not sure what they're going to do, to be honest with you. My inclination early was that they were going to put the franchise tag on him and do this thing 1 year at a time, because in the second 12-win season in a row, they're getting closer. The NFC is not going to be brutal next year, as good as I can tell you. I promise you, Minnesota's win total is going way the fuck down. It is. San Francisco is going to come back with one of two rookie-ish or second-year quarterbacks. Now, while they'll be good, they still won't scare the holy crap out of you. And I can't figure out the rest other than Philadelphia will be there. But was this Jalen Hurts' best year ever? Absolutely. Was it as good as he can play? Maybe. Maybe. The 2023 draft is coming. Let me remind you what happened for the Dallas Cowboys in the 2022 draft, because Will McClay and his scouts were phenomenal. Not going to go through the whole thing, but I'll tell you that Tyler Smith was the first pick. I, along with almost everyone else, but I'll leave it on me, were like, got rid of Al Collins too quickly, had to go out and overreact on Tyler Smith, who many people thought was top 10 second round pick, maybe mid-second round pick. He was a penalty waiting to happen throughout his entire career at college, and yet the Cowboys stuck on him, and I thought it was purely because of need. The truth is, they did a hell of a job. Tyler Smith's penalties, as compared to how he was as a kid growing up and playing at the University of Tulsa, came way down. And don't we all believe Tyler Smith, checkmark, because his personality is phenomenal. He is one tough son of a bitch. He is athletic. He can do everything you want him to do. His personality is different, but certainly I can see Tyler Smith approaching the kind of career, because he has this mentality and staying power, that Tyron Smith had. I know that's a big compliment. Defensive end Sam Williams. Really impactful player, especially as the season wore on. And there are things when you watch closely at Sam Williams, you say, I like that. And that is when he hits someone, when he puts two hands into someone, when he tackles someone, they go backwards. Sam Williams hits like old Roy Williams, the safety out of OU, used to. When Sam Williams tackles you, you go down. When he punches you in the chest with his shoulder, his head, or both of his arms, you go backwards. Sam Williams is going to continue to get better. Check on Tyler Smith, check on Sam Williams. Two tight ends came here, Jake Ferguson and Peyton Hendershot. Jake Ferguson has been called out by Travis Kelce, I believe, to be already the second best tight end in the history of the NFL, and literally said, I see Jake Ferguson being one hell of a player. He does a great job getting his foot in the ground. He gets his hips around. He is nimble as he can possibly be. He can really run, and he's tough. Travis Kelce coming out and saying one of the 2 or 3 young kids in the NFL who can be a great tight end like me, maybe, Jake Ferguson, the Dallas Cowboys. Peyton Hendershot was also in this draft. The two of them both block beautifully, which Dalton Schultz got better at, but still, let's face it, wasn't very good. Ferguson and Hendershot mean Dalton Schultz and his franchise tag number, which this didn't work out great. It wasn't terrible, but it didn't work out great. Dalton Schultz is most likely gone. Tyler Smith, Sam Williams, Jake Ferguson, Peyton Hendershot, and then cornerback Deron Bland, 5th round pick. How'd you like him? How big was Deron Bland when both Jordan Lewis and Anthony Brown got hurt? Phenomenal. Who led the Cowboys in interceptions? Deron Bland. Jalen Tolbert was a 3rd round pick. It's going to happen. Parcells used to pull a piece of paper out of his back pocket and say, I got a bunch of guys here that want to play too. Now, they are free agents that aren't on anybody else's team. But his point is, we miss. 1st round picks get a longer window, 2nd round picks a slightly lesser, and 3rd round picks a little bit less. They're not getting rid of Jalen Tolbert because they did see out of Jalen Tolbert fast feet, good hips, a really good ability to potentially in this league get open. He just didn't do it, and he did not impress them, and he was essentially not even active for almost all of the Cowboys games this year. So he's going to have a good camp. But Jalen Tolbert stays. By the way, as we sit here now, this team needs wide receivers. Continuing with the draft, linebacker Damone Clark came to this team as an injured player. You know how the Cowboys love that, and it worked out again. Damone Clark was on the injured list, maybe going to play in week 10, week 11, week 12. I'm pretty sure he returned in week 8. And then it was only going to be special teams, only there's an injury at linebacker, and here comes Damone Clark and made an impact on this football team. I promise you, you're going to see a hell of a lot more of Damone Clark at linebacker. Another very good draft pick. And then Cavante Turpin was the USFL MVP. He ends up making the Pro Bowl on special teams. That is another Will McClay find. Okay, now that's not the entire draft. Matt Waletzko, the tackle from Wisconsin, maybe, did not make a big impact, got hurt somewhere in October, but he's a tackle and he's on the roster. There's a kid named Ball. He's on the roster, and that's basically what your draft looked like. Pretty damn good for the Dallas Cowboys, and the impact that those gentlemen, all of them really except Jalen Tolbert, had on this football team. Amazing. So tip of the hat to Will McClay. If you don't know his name, you know it now. Will McClay is very good at his job. Don't forget, he's dealing with Jerry Jones, who's going to override whatever he wants, who's going to get a whim, who's going to talk to 58 other people that are friends of his in the industry or around the industry, and at any minute, he could override Will McClay. Will McClay's dealing with all that shit. The 2023 Cowboys draft. The first pick is pick number 26. The second pick is 58. The third pick is 90, 1, 2, 3 round. Fourth round is 129. Fifth round, 163. No 6th round pick, but a 7th round pick at 246. And projected compensatory picks. There are 3 of them for free agents that left the Cowboys last year that they get compensation for. Don't ask me who they are. I'll get you that in the next in the next show. But what it gets you is pick number roughly 170, 5th round, 176, 5th round, 212, 6th round. So in theory, you have a 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 3/5, a 6th, and a 7th. Now that is cash right there. That's cash. Those 3 5th round picks certainly will have value more and more and more. What do we find in the 5th round? Running backs. Everybody wants to pick a 5th or 6th round running back, and it seems to work. So there are opportunities there for the Cowboys to trade up if they like, to try and find themselves another impact defensive player. If nothing else, 3 5th round picks, somewhere in between whatever it is, 160 and 185. That gives the Cowboys currency. That's more currency, those 3 5th round picks. Not to say they couldn't use the others, but that's where I see trades coming from. Remember, key positions in the draft, and we're getting to the draft. Key positions on any NFL football team, not necessarily in this order: offensive tackle, defensive end, maybe 2, cornerback, especially shutdown cornerback, quarterback. Yes, that's it. Essentially, those are the 4 positions. You could have 2 great defensive ends. That would be all the better. You could have 2 great tackles. That would be all the better. Still premium players. Certainly, a great quarterback is important. And then cornerbacks, I'm counting Diggs as an excellent quarterback in this league. His ball skills are something else. His tackling got better. He dropped a couple of interceptions this year when it looked like last year any ball within an area code of him he was going to catch. But I do believe Diggs is a really good player and is going to be a Cowboy for a long time to come. So I'm good on, let's say, the right side or the quarterback's left side. Diggs. Love the fact that Deron Bland came in as a 5th round pick and was so good. And by the way, can play the slot. Holy shit. I just can't stress to you enough the value of that. Deron Bland can play on the outside, but he's pretty damn good at the slot. That's really hard. So Jordan Lewis probably comes back and plays the slot. Deron Bland probably goes head-to-head with your 1st round cornerback pick. And by the way, in this draft, I'm looking for cornerback in the 1st round, or offensive tackle, either one. Then you go 2nd round offensive tackle or cornerback for me. Defensive end in the 3rd round would be great. You cannot have enough people that rush the passer. Defensive tackle somewhere in the middle. You sense a theme here. This is going to be a defensively driven football team. The only thing I want out of this draft offensively until the late rounds is an offensive tackle. 2, if you got them. I'd be fine with that because Mike McCarthy's taking over this offense. Brian Schottenheimer is here. What are we going to do to help Dak? Not necessarily get more skilled position players, although, yes, this team desperately needs a good, solid number 2. And don't be mad about who was here and who left and who went to Cleveland, and all that's not worth conversing about. The bottom line is you need a good number 2. Maybe Michael Gallup gets better again over full year removed from this injury, and he's that guy because he's certainly still going to be on the team. Maybe T.Y. Hilton resigns for a pittance, and in a quick passing offense, he's a good guy to have around, quite likely. But the bottom line is the Cowboys do need a wide receiver. Why haven't I said get one in the draft? Because I don't want to. Because the truth is, if you play fantasy football, you know, as I do, that every year in the draft, we find, 5 first round-ish, early 2nd round-ish wide receivers that we think may make an impact. The truth is, last year, there were about 5 or 6 of those that were drafted in the top 10 rounds of fantasy drafts. And how many of them were Chris Olave or the Jets rookie or who? Not very many. And this team is playing for next year, 12 more wins and an ascension to the conference championship of the NFC. That's what they're after. So I don't want a wide receiver to fill in that position. I want a wide receiver that I either trade for or that's a free agent that can come in and be a veteran. And you're saying, I know, they tried that twice this year. You're right. I'm looking for a better wide receiver than that. To say it plainly, you're hearing about it. I'm looking for DeAndre Hopkins from Arizona. I don't think the ask on that is going to be as much as you think. His numbers are pretty good in terms of the salary cap, $19 million next year and only $13.5 million the year after that. The top wide receivers in football next year are going to be paid roughly $32 million. If I can get D-Hop at roughly $32 million for 2 years, for maybe the next to best last 2 years of his career, running good routes and catching every ball thrown his way and bailing Dak out because he's in the right spot and he makes better reads sometimes than Dak does, then yes. CeeDee Lamb ascended to a true number 1 in the second half of this season with D-Hop. That takes care of everything the quarterback needs, because the offensive line did a pretty damn good job, and you're going to add an offensive tackle. So what do we do in the draft? I'm going to break it down all the way through rounds 5, 6, and 7. I'm going to go deep into this. But for today, I'm going to tell you to look at these people. The guy that I would love to have that is a true cornerback. So if I've got Diggs over here eyeballing the fuck out of the quarterback and always looking to create a turnover, what I'd like to have over here is a tactician, an athlete, but someone who knows exactly what he's doing, knows how to stay close to his man. And so let the gambler be on this side, wherever they line up, and let the new kid, who's an impact player who plays from day one as a rookie, let him be a tactician that is a true cornerback that knows how to cover his man one-on-one. Cam Smith from South Carolina. Super physical at just 6 feet 190. That's not small, but it's not huge. But Cam Smith is physical as hell. That is how he stays close to his man. He plays physical football. He gets up on you in the line of scrimmage if he's so allowed. He punches you. He keeps control of you. He has makeup speed. He has unbelievable instincts. And I would love Cam Smith from South Carolina to be picked 26 for the Dallas Cowboys. A high motor, great instincts, and he will be over here doing his job. If not him, Joey Porter Jr. from Penn State. All right, you remember his dad, Joey Porter Sr., very good player, tantalized people throughout his career. This kid is a very good player. And then the third one, Keely Ringo from Georgia. I could just stop there. How about cornerback Keely Ringo from Georgia? Yep, okay with me. I don't know who he is, Brady. He went to Georgia. He's 6'2". He's 212. He's a friggin' athlete. Now, is he polished at cornerback? I don't think so. But it wouldn't take him long. And when you watch this Cowboys very athletic defense, don't you love how athletic they are? Don't you love how they blitz? Don't you love how, except for about a 3-game stretch where they tackle, don't you love how they get back and forth across the field and there are gangs of them tackling? An athletic, fast defense is the best thing. It's just the best thing. So if you end up with Keely Ringo, a cornerback from Georgia, who is an incredible athlete on your team at 26, I'm still good. Any of those three. Cam Smith, Joey Porter Jr., or Keely Ringo. I will keep digging, but those are my 3 favorite that I believe have a chance to get to 26. Devin Witherspoon is a name you're going to hear, might be the first or second cornerback chosen. I don't think he gets past 15. If I hear in the next month or two the Cowboys are stuck on someone, I'll let you know that maybe there's a chance they're moving up. That's what those extra 5th-round picks may help you do. Devin Witherspoon is probably the best corner in the draft, and he is, back to that word I used, a tactician. He knows exactly how to play the cornerback position. Went to Illinois. He stood out every game that he played in the NCAA as a cornerback. Very good. 6'1", 200, just really good at his job. Be great to have him. Round number 2, pick 58 for the Cowboys. Now, since I went cornerback, I want offensive tackle. And yes, by the way, there is a dalliance amongst Cowboys apparently that they might want to move up to choose a quarterback and extend Dak Prescott. Which is it? And are you really moving up to choose a quarterback and to fast track him? Then what are you going to do with this contract that is $47 million this year, $51 million next year? I don't see it. I can't figure out how they're going to do it and continue to try to win 12 games again next year and make it to the NFC Championship. I'll dig deeper. Offensive tackle, pick number 58, Darnell Wright from Tennessee. All right, I watched this kid his first 2 or 3 years in the game, and you could tell he was good, but he was raw. He made mistakes. You could almost see Darnell Wright a little bit at times in his own head. But at 6'6", 335 in 2022, when his team offensively broke out, Darnell Wright was a big part of the reason that Tennessee was able to pass the football so brilliantly all year, run the football great, be a top 3 scoring offense in the NFL. Darnell Wright broke out. Absolutely loves to play football. 6'6", 335, really long arms, good at setting on pass protection, and just as good getting up and out of his break to pull or do whatever he needs to do on a running play. The Cowboys are going to run a lot. They want Dak Prescott to be pressured even less than he was last year, so he throws less interceptions. Darnell Wright, offensive tackle, Tennessee. My second choice, Jalen Duncan, is from Maryland. Now, he chose Maryland. You might say Maryland over Ohio State and Pittsburgh. Don't know why, but I know that's the case. Huge lower half, very strong, 6'5", 315, and great from the waist down especially. Has huge burst out of his ass and his legs, a great run blocking offensive tackle. You know what else he's good at? The subtleties of and the footwork of the screen game. The screen game for the Dallas Cowboys is going to get a lot better because it's been shitty for 4 years. The Cowboys can't run a screen. If you watch the Kansas City Chiefs and some of the better offensive teams, the Chargers are another one. The Bills are another one. They don't run the ball very well, but the screens work like crazy. You want to make things easier on your quarterback, be able to have controlled drives and be able to put drives together one play after another. Screens are phenomenal, and the Cowboys have been terrible at it. Jalen Duncan from Maryland is wonderful at disguising what he's doing, drifting into his spot and getting out and leading a screen. Very good. He didn't start playing football until he was 14, so there's less wear and tear on his body. And the number one thing he told everybody about why he likes football, why he took it up in the first place, was he grew up in a terrible part of town, and it was his way out. That's a mentality for road grader, nasty bastards like offensive tackles that I am down with. Cornerbacks, defensive ends, offensive tackles. Later in the draft, certainly, give me a running back in round 5. Most likely, give me a quarterback in round 6. Wait, I got 3 fifth-round picks. Okay, quarterback is fine. Wide receiver is fine. Running back is fine. But none of them gets to be a Dallas Cowboy, and at the earliest, round 5. Rounds 1 through 4, unless it's an offensive tackle, are all about cornerbacks and defensive ends. Cornerbacks, defensive ends, offensive tackles, a defensive playmaker. If you tell me I've got a hybrid, no shit, this defensive coordinator makes hybrids out of everybody, and they run around and they hit and they run like missiles and they make plays, and they're terrific, right? Curse, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is really a good team. This is a defensive coordinator that knows how to get everybody to buy into a complicated scheme that they figured out. And what they all figured out is, I can be a playmaker. I can generate turnovers. I can make tackles. I can make big hits, highlight plays that put me in the Pro Bowl. 3 defenders went to the Pro Bowl last year. 3 offensive players and a special teams guy. 7. There are a lot of good players on this team, but the draft has to be done right. Do not be drafting first and second and third round running backs. I know all of you are tantalized by Bijan Robinson. So am I. And you're looking at me saying, wait a minute, you told me it's going to be a running team. It is. A short, quick passing offense. It is. Is Bijan Robinson the best running back in the draft? Oh, my God. Yes. Is he good at swing passes and screens? Oh, my God. Yes. This is a league that has now told us no on running backs in the first round. They'll hold you for ransom, as Zeke did at the end of the third year. They'll get to a 7th year, which will screw your team. And by the way, they're dead on their feet, almost no matter who they are, after year 3.5, 4 at the latest. No on first-round running backs, as much as I love Bijan Robinson. And if he's there at 26, then trade down a pick or 2 and let somebody else take him. I love him, but we ain't choosing first-round running backs. Please, please. No first-round running backs, no first-round wide receivers. Let's be a physical team. It started last year, 9th in the NFL in running, 24 rushing touchdowns, incredible stuff. Dak's going to run the football more. Let's keep it simple. A lot more like what the 49ers do. A lot more like what Mike McCarthy did to make it very easy, to be honest with you, on Aaron Rodgers and most of his time in Green Bay. Very easy. How many times you see him check down to Aaron Jones? Little screens, beautiful things. Was he good at it? Was he subtle at setting it up? He absolutely was. But all of that can be taught, and it will make it easier for a quarterback. It made it easier for Aaron Rodgers. It will make it easier for Dak Prescott. I am now officially rambling, but I am excited. There are trades to be had. There is a draft on the horizon that, in theory, the Cowboys have 9 picks in. So they have the ability to go get what they want, and the bulk core of your team is coming back. I believe one way or another, Tony Pollard will be here, so you don't need Bijan Robinson anyway. Find a running back in round 6. Find one in round 7 if you want. I don't care. Find a wide receiver if you're enamored with somebody in round 5. You can do whatever you want. There will be free agents and or trades to be had, and D-Hop would settle most of what you need at the wide receiver position. It's a good team. This team's going to get better. Do not give up. Do not keep texting me and emailing me and being mad at me of this is the same shit for the last 27 years. It's really not. This is better. Back-to-back 12-win seasons hasn't happened since the 90s. Back-to-back leading the NFL in turnovers from this defense hasn't happened in the NFL since the steel curtain of the early 70s. This team has a lot going for it, both its primary coaches return and essentially 8 keystone, really good players return. Don't worry about the free agents. 2 or 3 of them that you need will be back as well. I'm Brady Tinker. Can't wait to talk to you next Friday. This is getting very exciting because it's fun to have a good team that has the opportunity to get better in what will be a NFC. Let's go get it. I'm Brady Tinker. Enjoy your weekend. This is Off of the Helmets, courtesy of East Coast Sports Investors. Have a good weekend, everybody.